Hello, homeschoolers! Welcome to the Land of Kakiak. My name is Laurel. We are continuing on in the Eclectic Manual of Methods. We have read about McGuffey's Primer. We have read about the first reader. We are still in the reading section. We are on Chapter 5, General Remarks. Great care must be taken not to attempt too much in any one lesson. Here the teacher must be guided by his judgment as to the intelligence of his class, and no specific directions can be laid down. In general, we would say, do not wait until you see the class become weary and the interest flagging. Stop while all are fresh and zealous. It is much better to err on the side of brevity than of its opposite. It is well to be thorough and to make sure of one step before taking another, but do not make the mistake of going to the opposite extreme and dwell on one topic or one lesson until the children are weary and disgusted with it. Analysis. If you are using the combined method, when the class has made some progress, say at the end of the first review, Lesson 5 of the primer, begin the work of analyzing into their elementary sounds the words already learned and fixed in the mind. At first, this work may prove quite difficult and the results discouraging, but patience and perseverance will accomplish wonders in a few lessons properly taught, and it will be found that children take great interest in this branch of their study. The great trouble in the teaching of phonics is that many teachers are themselves unable to do what is required of the children. They adopt an unnatural tone and distort the word under study so that as a matter of course the children fail to recognize the most familiar words. The teacher then should give the subject careful attention and not attempt to teach a class until he is certain of his own ground. If understood, the subject of phonics is very simple and very easily taught. Moreover, it is of great assistance to the child in acquiring new words, and should therefore not be neglected. We here introduce the method of treating the words found in Lesson 1. Commence by pronouncing for the class the word cat, rather slowly, in a perfectly natural tone, and with very distinct articulation, giving each letter its full value. Ask the class what the word is. It will or should be recognized at once. Pronounce it more slowly and with the same care, and have the class imitate you. Repeat the word a number of times, each time more slowly than before. The class always imitating you until you have in this manner separated the word as nearly as possible into the elementary sounds k, a, t. Care must be taken that the c and t are not slighted, and the a prolonged into a drawl. Thus, k, at. Dwell equally on the c, the a, and the t, and insist on the class doing the same thing. Call up individuals until you are sure they all have the idea. Then say, listen carefully, children, while I pronounce the word cat, as you have just done, and see who can give me the first sound that I make. Pronounce the word, making almost an entire separation between the C and the A. If all fail to recognize it, give the C sound alone and have the class imitate. Follow the same plan with the A and T and drill until the class is familiar with the 3 elementary sounds. Now have the children pronounce the word very slowly as before and tell them that you will write on the board the letters that stand for the sounds as they give them. Then as they pronounce cat, write the word with the diacritical marks. Reverse the process and have the children give the sounds as you write the letters. Treat rat and in the same way. The class should now be able to give all the elementary sounds of the first lesson. The characters representing these sounds are given in the vocabulary at the head of the lesson. Drill the class on these until the characters and their sounds are instantly associated in the minds of the pupils, so that when a sound is given, they can at once point out its character. And when a character is pointed out, they can at once give its sound. Continue these exercises throughout the book. Synthesis. When the children have grasped the idea of analysis and can readily resolve simple, familiar words into their elementary sounds, teach them how to reverse the process and build up new words from the sounds they have learned. This will afford interesting and profitable occupation for them at their desks. For example, from the elements given in the first 4 lessons of the primer can be formed the following simple words not found in the vocabularies. Mat, that, map, rap, mad, had, Sam, pat, than, nap, tap, pad, ham, fat, pan, lap, sap, sad, ram. Show the children how to build these words in phonic order. Thus the word cat is given in Lesson 1. Write it on the board and have the class pronounce it. Then rubbing out the C, ask, "Now children, who can tell me what sound to make to change cat to pat?" Pronounce the word pat several times, giving the P sound emphasis, until some of the class indicate that they have recognized the sound necessary to make the change. Select one of the pupils to give the sound of P. When it is given correctly, write both cat and pat on the board at one side. Form fat and that in the same way, and write them in the column under cat and pat. Then, taking the words ran in Lesson 2 and cap and lad in Lesson 4 as bases, form van, pan, map, nap, lap, rap, tap, sap, mad, pad, sad, and had. Write these words on the board in columns as they are formed, putting each under its proper base word. The remaining words are more difficult, for although the elements forming them are given, we find no word in the vocabularies to take as a basis, as we did in forming the other words. However, this will not be necessary after a few lessons, and the children will in time be able to form new words without the teacher's assistance. The new words thus formed must be those which belong to the ordinary vocabulary of the child. The children will recognize them at once as familiar and will join in the exercises with zest. The spirit of competition as to who can make the most new words will arouse the interest of the class, and every new lesson will broaden the field so that work in this direction will never grow monotonous. Place the new words formed in each lesson on the board and have the children use them by combining them into phrases and sentences, which should be written on their slates and read aloud. Diacritical marks. This is the proper place to begin the study of the diacritical marks. They should be used in the work of analysis every time the teacher or a pupil puts a word on the board, and the pupils should be required to use them in such slate exercises as are given them to perform under this head. The accurate knowledge of the power of all the diacritical marks, as well as the mastery of all the sounds of the letters representing them, is necessary for the intelligent use of the dictionary and the acquirement of a correct and elegant pronunciation. Note: the elementary sounds of the English language are frequently represented by characters other than the primary ones which give them name. Thus, long A is represented not only by A, but also by E. A list of the ordinary substitutes as recognized by Webster will be found on page 96 for the first reader, but unusual substitutes are sometimes encountered, as for example, E or double E for I, as seen in England and bin. Often, too, combinations of letters are met with which seem to present the elementary sounds. On examination, these combinations are frequently seen to consist of the primary character or one of its substitutes and silent letters. For example, the only substitute given for A, long A, in the list on page 96 is E, but we have the sound of A in they, sleigh, vein, gauge, break, may, gale, bouquet, etc. If we analyze the above combinations, we find that in every instance, either long A or E really represents the sound, and that the other letters of the combination are simply not sounded. We have marked the silent letters in the examples quoted by making them italics. In bouquet, the second U is in combination with Q to form the sound of K, and is therefore not marked silent. Unusual substitutes and silent letters in combination are often confusing. And for the convenience of teachers, we here insert a table for reference presenting a complete list of the characters representing the elementary sounds, both primary characters and their substitutes, with Webster's diacritical marks, and also the ordinary combinations of silent letters with the various sounds. The character or several characters representing each sound are italicized, as also are the silent letters used in combination with those characters. Other silent letters are unmarked in this way to avoid possible confusion. Only one example of each substitute and combination is presented. Then there's a whole list of vowel sounds. They got the diacritic marks, and they have example words. And then if they are substituting for something, they've marked that. Remark: Webster makes a slight difference between E as in air and U as in burn, or Y as in myrtle. The E is a compromise between short E and the U or Y sound in the examples quoted. Remark: care must be taken not to pronounce long U like double O, ooh. It is cube, not coob. Tube, not tube. Tune, not tune. Remark: This letter is never silent, except in Wednesday and handkerchief. It's under consonants. The middle R of poorer has a double sound. ZH, these letters are never written together, but the sound of the combination is heard in azure. Menagerie, bijou, rouge, measure, transition. Note, some words differ so radically in their written characters and the sounds which compose them that their pronunciation can be indicated most readily by respelling them, as for example, once, spelled W-U-N-S. Words of this class are therefore respelled in the vocabularies of the reader. Script exercises. In copying the script exercises and also in writing the regular reading lessons, see that the children use capital letters wherever they appear in the book and that they insert the proper punctuation marks. It is a mistake to allow young children to write without attention to both these points. If they are required to observe them from the beginning, the rules governing them will be readily understood when the proper time comes to study them. Capital letters. The rules for capital letters are simple, and the principal ones should be taught orally early in the course. See Harvey's Revised English Grammar, pages 14 through 17. Punctuation. The subject of punctuation is a very difficult one to understand in all its bearings, and no attempt should be made to teach its formal rules in primary classes. A few of the marks, such as the period, interrogation point, exclamation point, hyphen, and quotation mark, should be explained briefly and in simple language, as they are met within the text. The semicolon and comma, especially the latter, involve many rules, exceptions, and exceptions to exceptions. The consequent complications are understood by very few teachers, and it is absurd to try to teach them to little children. It is sufficient to answer, should the children ask what they mean, that they are marks used to help us understand the meaning of the writer. Many teachers seem to have no idea that this is the purpose and the only purpose of punctuation. They seem to think that the various marks are used to indicate rhetorical pauses and make the children pause and count 1 for a comma, 2 for a semicolon, 3 for a colon, and 4 for a period. It would be just as sensible if they continued this system and counted 5 for an interrogation point and 6 for an exclamation point. This counting is not only ridiculous, but it aids to defeat the very object of the reading lesson. It distracts the child in his endeavor to grasp the meaning of the sentence he is reading, whereas he should be left perfectly free to concentrate his mind on this one point, and when he does get the meaning of the sentence clearly, its proper expression will follow naturally without artificial aids. Constant attention should be paid to articulation and pronunciation. Do not allow a child to say fast for fast, goin' for going, again or again for again, etc. Daily drill on the phonic chart, page 95 and 96 of McGuffey's Revised First Reader, will accomplish more in this direction than many teachers seem to imagine. This exercise need not take more than from 5 to 10 minutes of each day, and the entire school may be drilled together. Only 1 or 2 sounds should be studied at a time. Do not carry preciseness in articulation and pronunciation to the extreme of interfering with the child in his endeavor to grasp the thought of what he is reading. However, for the latter is the important aim and should take precedence of all others. If a child makes an error in articulation or pronunciation while reading, do not interrupt him yourself or allow him to be interrupted by other pupils until he is finished, then call his attention to the mispronounced word and have him give it correctly. Correct all errors the children make in pronunciation in all conversational exercises. To pronounce correctly is of even greater importance than to spell well. For where one word is written, many are uttered in conversation. A correct pronunciation is counted as a mark of culture. If the class shows a tendency to read in a monotonous manner or in an unnatural tone, have the books closed and set the children to talking about the lesson. Lead them to express a sentence in the words of the book. Then have the same sentence read from the book. In this way, the children may be led to see for themselves the difference between a natural and an unnatural manner of reading. Where the combined method is employed, the use of the illustrations in the language lessons preliminary to a reading lesson should be continued until the children have acquired the faculty of associating new words and the ideas they present without such aid. It is a mistake to continue this method after it has ceased to be necessary, and it then retards rather than assists. Just when the method should be dropped depends largely upon the intelligence of the class, and each teacher must use his own judgment in the matter. It is probable that you will find some pupils in the primary classes who have already had some instructions in reading by the alphabet or spelling method. These will be very apt to stop in their reading to spell doubtful words. This should be stopped at once. Neither should a child be allowed to guess at a word. But these faults show plainly that the word recalls no definite idea to the child's mind. That is, that the idea and its symbol are not instantly associated as the fundamental principles of all correct methods demand they should be. Before the children are called upon to read the lesson, the teacher should have reasonable assurance that the new words have been studied by the children. This is necessary to avoid hesitation, and hesitation is the source of many bad habits. Okay, let's discuss. I'm working on a notebook for the first reader right now, so this is helpful to me. But let's process this together a little bit, okay? So I thought this was a good tip. Great care must be taken not to attempt too much in any one lesson, right? Short and sweet lessons. Well, you still want to make sure we're following, that they have the words mastered before we have them read the whole passage. But stop while all are fresh and zealous, yeah. Better to err on the side of brevity. Yeah, don't dwell too long on the same. If they've got it, they've got it. Don't keep going over it. Analysis. So I already have my analysis activity in the book. Let's see how they are saying to do it. They said introduce the method of treating the words found in lesson 1. Commence by pronouncing for the class. So first you want to pronounce the word for them. The word slowly, but in a natural tone. Distinct articulation. So they said, like if the word was cat, we'd say, okay, listen to this word. The word is cat. Ask the class what the word is. What's a cat? And they can tell you the meaning, right? That's what I like about, it's vocabulary and spelling, and reading. It's literacy all together in the McGuffies. It will or should be recognized at once. They should know what most of these words mean. Okay, pronounce it more slowly and have the class imitate you, right? They're gonna parrot you or echo you. Repeat the word a number of times. Each time more slowly than before. The class always imitating you until you have it down to the elementary sounds. Okay, so we were talking about what are elementary sounds before. So I noticed that when I was reading this, it sounds like what they call elementary sounds are what we would call phonemes, like the smallest units of sound in our language, like ah, but ch is also a phoneme, even though it's 2 letters, just like our smallest units of sound. I think that's what they mean by elementary sounds, because like they had that discussion on the long A sound, A, that there's multiple spellings of, but it's still the same phoneme, it's still the same sound, but with multiple spellings of it. Here's your phonological awareness. Pronounce the word cat and see who can give me the first sound that I make. So you're having them hear it and then just isolate it down to the elementary, right, or phoneme sounds. It was the first sound, which they would say k, right? You can do that all the way through. What's the second sound? Ah. They have to think about the word in their head. And then they want you to drill the class on these until the characters and their sounds are instantly associated in the minds of the pupils. So they've got a word like cat, and then you draw it out until you basically just have the 3 sounds, k, at. And then they want you to drill them to make sure that they can, if they see a C, they know that's k. And if you said, give me the letter or the grapheme or whatever for k, they would write a C. Or they could point to it. If you wrote a couple letters, like which one of these, point to the one that says k, right? They could do that. Synthesis. This is building up new words. This is an activity I have to come up with for the notebook in a way that's easy for people. But so using the sounds that they've been practicing in that lesson, coming up with new words. And they did say that you'll may have to help them the first few lessons, and that it'll be difficult at first, but everything is always difficult at first. But they said perseverance. I love that word, perseverance. Just keep going. Don't be discouraged. I feel like, especially as I've had those moments as a homeschool parent where I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't working out. I'm screwing it all up. But they're giving you some insurance. So just keep going. Perseverance. It'll get easier, right? Place the new words formed in each lesson. They said on the board. Have the children use them by combining them into phrases and sentences. So let's say they came up with a new word, mat or something. Then they'd have to put that into a phrase or a sentence. So it doesn't have to be a perfect complete sentence. They said phrases were okay. You could say the mat, a mat. Oh, I said a. We're supposed to say a mat. His mat, her mat, the dog's mat, whatever. The thing that stuck out in my brain when they were saying that was, I'm like, what if they say they may come up with a word that they don't know how to spell though, but they know the word. They could come up with a phrase, but maybe they don't know how to spell his or something. I'm guessing in that case, I would just write it on the board and have them copy it. They're assuming they're doing this on slates. So I was like, what's your phrase? And they said his mat or the boy's mat or something. I'd write the boy's mat and on the board, and then they could just, copy it on their slate or paper or whatever you're working with, whiteboard, whatever. Maybe in their notebook, whatever they're working in. Diacritical marks. So this is the time. So it may seem early, but it's not. Teach them the diacritical marks early. They said they should be used in the work of analysis every time the teacher or pupil puts a word on the board, and the pupil should be required to use them in such slate exercises. It's not, I feel like it's intimidating, but it's not. Once you just start doing it, it's not anymore. It's helpful. And you'll learn them right alongside your kids. You'll learn it faster than they will, so don't worry. Then this is nice though, in the general remarks, they give all of the substitutions. It's not exactly the same, but pretty similar. Same idea. So in copying the script exercises and also in writing the regular reading lessons, see that the children use capital letters, right? So if they're doing copy work, we want to copy, as I tell my kids, exactly as you see it. Everything should be a match. Every capital, every piece of punctuation, even every spacing, right? Daily drill on the phonic chart. So they are saying doing a daily drill on this phonic chart, but they said not to do more than 1 or 2 at a time. And this has the diacritics on it. So I would prefer to do this with phonogram flashcards. That's easier for me. And just because I like the way, I like the Alpha Phonics flashcards. I like the way that they include more of the digraphs and stuff. But you could just easily, as they're coming up in the lesson, as they are, being pulled out, you see that the new ones that they're learning that are going to be highlighted that you want to make sure they have mastered. You could just be pulling those ones, if you have a flashcard set, or if you just have an index cards, you could just be making little cards as you go. You start with C, T, I, M, and S is saying its second sound, and is zings. So you could just make little cards for them, and you could just, write on there just how they do, just their symbols, so you can train them to see exactly have a matching symbol for the pronunciation. So correct all errors, in pronunciation, and all the conversational exercises. They're don't let any of that stuff go. Before the children are called upon to read the lesson, the teacher should have reasonable assurance that the new words have been studied by the children. So they always want you to be focusing on the vocabulary words first before they read the passage. Otherwise, they'll stop. They'll be stopped trying to figure out words. And so just make sure that these are well mastered first. That was their guidance. I don't know. I didn't mind. With my kids, when I've been teaching them, I'm on we go over the words, but we might do the words alone for a day or two, but I'm just go ahead. I let them try. I let them see it just because they get bored. But maybe not. Maybe if you're doing more of the slate exercises and more of the word building like they were talking about, maybe they wouldn't. We'll see how that works out in the new notebook. I'll show you guys when it's done. So if you have any comments, anything to share, any questions about the general remarks, leave them in the comment section. I am going to pick up, I'm going to work on this notebook for a while. I'm going to try to get it ironed out. And when that's done, then I will pick back up in the manual with the conclusion of the reading section, which is McGuffey's second reader. So I foresee quite a jump, right? And probably what they were going to have us do. So I'm just going to immerse myself in that first reader for a while longer. So be looking for that video to come out whenever that project is done. And then we'll pick back up with the second reader. Okay, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.